This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out. Delighted today to be joined by Gareth A Davies here over Zoom. Gareth, bright and early Tuesday morning. How is everything? You're good?
Absolutely good. It feels like a Monday, but it's a Tuesday because of the bank holiday. And also, like you, no doubt, I've spent 3 nights up. I was in Dubai last week at Crypto Fight Nights, came back Friday, did Talk Sports Saturday, but I've been up Friday night, up Saturday night, up Sunday night, and Monday. Well, I couldn't believe it was. I didn't even know it was a bank holiday till Sunday night. So I thought that's great. I can sleep in. So I've got my sleep back. Not sure whether I'll ever get those hours back where I was like thumping the desk because I wasn't seeing what I wanted to see.
Well, let's dive straight into all the talk first. We'll go to the start of the big weekend of boxing, the Friday night in Times Square. A real spectacle on paper when you looked at it and you looked at the matchups on the card as well. And on the night, it just didn't quite deliver. We saw three fights, some good performances and solid performances, but just a real lack of that entertainment factor. How actually unimpressed were you by the matchups?
Well, Turkey Al Sheikh and the Ring magazine, under which his auspices it is now governed, made a massive effort in Times Square to do something a little different. I think retrospectively, I wish that they'd gone to Madison Square Garden, and we'd had 20,000 fans in there because I think it might have got something more out, certainly out of this guy Ryan Garcia, who looked like a shadow, a shell of himself on the night against Rolly Romero. Part of me thought he looked like he needed a tune-up fight, not a world-class opponent. Part of me thought, why didn't they put him straight in with Devin Haney? This is all retrospective straight away. Because Ryan Garcia just didn't deliver, knocked down in the second round, never got a foothold in the fight, and was comprehensively outpointed. As I say, looked like a shell of himself, looked very washed out. Physically as well, he didn't look as big and tensile, the tensile strength that he'd had in previous fights. I know that he was taking a banned substance at the time, but he just didn't look right. And, to see him in tears afterwards in his dressing room, I'm a big advocate of Ryan Garcia and what he brings to the sports. Very disappointing, but well done to Rolly Romero taking his opportunity. Maybe the hunger's gone for Ryan Garcia. Maybe they throw him in with Conor Benn now, is what I'm thinking, which I think would sell over here, as would Chris Eubank and Canelo over here. But we may yet, I know we've discussed it, see see Chris Eubank and Ben fight a second time, and I am worried about Eubank's weight cut for the second fight. Um, Devin Haney, the word I'm going to use is gun shy. He looked gun shy after a couple of rounds. I was expecting him to stop and plant his feet, but he continued to use the outer reaches of the ring to dance away from Jose Benavidez. He's such a skilled boxer. He slid away with the rounds, but it wasn't the best performance we've seen from Devin Haney. I wanted to see more cutting edge stuff from him. And Tio Lopez didn't listen to his dad all night, but he enacted a great game plan. Rarely jabbed, went to the body very well, went to head and body very well, and looked a level or two even above Arnold Barboza Jr. in what was a terrific performance. Overall, though, the performances of the two, I mean, there were 3 stars on the cards. The two I mentioned, Haney and Garcia. Garcia gets a C and Haney gets a B minus in spite of winning.
How damaging was Friday night for the potential of a rematch between Haney and Garcia?
Well, I think it's done. I think there isn't one there right now because it doesn't work. And there's always a habit of semi-finals going wrong in boxing, or of the best laid plans not working out as you want them to, because our sport is one in which you learn to expect the unexpected, and there were some very unexpected things on Friday night. Um, I think Haney and Lopez at 140 is a great fight now. I think Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn is a really good fight right now. I think would sell a stadium here. But even though Conor Benn wanted the Ryan Garcia fight before he fought, you know, strutting as he was as this new superstar over in on the streets of New York, and I think in Miami at the Formula One over the weekend
Yeah, seen that as
with the
well.
lovely Victoria. Glad to see him enjoying his success. Um, but I think Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn would be a big sell. But at the end of the fight, or the end of the night, he said, "No, no, forget about Ryan Garcia. I've lost interest in him," which is a shame because one losing fighter's stock has risen and another losing fighter's stock has been depleted considerably. And obviously, you know who I'm talking about.
Do you feel there is any interest in a Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney rematch, or do you feel they should just forget about it, go their
No,
separate
no,
ways
it
now?
doesn't make sense promotionally in this moment. You know, it just does not make sense. Um, as I say, looking back on it with hindsight, I wish they'd gone in against each other straight away. But they'd both been out a year. And first of all, I was thinking, oh, Garcia needs a tune up. But maybe Haney needed a tune up as well. Maybe he was terribly affected by that fight against Ryan Garcia, and maybe he'll never get something back. And this is why they wanted to bring the civil lawsuit against Garcia, because maybe he's irradicably affected by one man's refusal or inability to make the weight, and also secondarily that he tested positive for banned substances.
Looking at Saturday night now, Canelo versus William School in Riyadh. Again, another night which just failed to deliver for the fans, and especially us over here in the UK. It must have been a really, really tough 2 days for us, but I think the Americans could spare a thought for us here because that was brutal. Um, Looking at the undercard, Martin Bakoli versus FA Jagba, resulting in a draw, but a few split opinions on that final scorecard. What was your thoughts on the fight?
Well, I thought Bacoli came into the fight late and managed to claw back the points. Jagbo was brilliant in the build up in the week, saying Bacoli had sold himself down the line um, by going and fighting at 48 hours' notice against Joseph Parker back in February. And I thought he was brilliant all week in terms of kind of elevating himself and saying, "You be careful of me because I'm still a wrecking ball." And Bacoli is no longer the boogeyman of the division. Well, something went wrong with the weight cut, not the weight cut, but the conditioning. No, not even the conditioning, the nutrition that Bacoli was putting in his body. 299 pounds he was, of course, very big again, only a stone lighter than the very, very big teddy bear sized man, giant teddy bear sized man who stepped in against Parker on February 22. Um, it was an interesting fight. I still have them at 8 and 9 in the world in the heavyweight division. They're both big, dangerous fighters. But if anything, Ajagba came out with his stock risen after a very good performance. And as Billy Nelson says, I was surprised by Martin's actual weight on the scales, and I'm getting him a full-time nutritionist, which I think is a very smart move.
Do you believe a rematch needs to be taking place between Bakoli and Ajagba, or again go their separate ways?
They could fight again, and they probably will. It's a great fight to have in Africa, Nigeria versus Congo. You know, they can have a rumble in the jungle. Um, but they do match up very well. Um, Weirdly, I remember saying to someone, it wouldn't surprise me if that fight's a draw. 16-1, I think the draw was, by the way. Um, but yeah, they're both troublesome figures in the heavyweight division without being at that top table right now. But it wouldn't surprise me to see them rematch.
And then looking at the headliner of the evening, Canelo versus William Skull. I feel with Canelo fights, we are seeing a running theme now of points decisions, but we've seen some exciting fights in that run. But I think this one might be one to forget on the run. Even Canelo seemed visibly frustrated walking back to his dressing room after the fight. How disappointed did you feel come the final round and the end of the fight?
Well, Canelo had an easy night's work. Only earned 80 million US dollars, we're led to believe, for that performance, reportedly. Overall, 140 million, round about 140 million US dollars spent on the purses over the weekend. So enormous amounts of money being spent, and some of the fighters not delivering. I think notably, Skull didn't want to engage at all, and he employed the Cuban style of boxing to its worst degree on Saturday night, where the game plan was to avoid contact with Canelo. Um, I think one of the judges scored it 115, 113, which I thought was how you give Skull five of those 12 rounds is just beyond me. He might have won two rounds at the very most because he barely engaged. I mean, you were watching it at 5 in the morning in the UK, going, or 4 in the morning, going, come on, do something now. And then that transferred to Canelo, who was barely, yes, he had a couple of three punch combinations, but it was single punches over and over again, largely to the body. It was terrible fare. It was terrible. It was terrible entertainment. It was hard to get through. It felt like 55 rounds you were watching. And if I'd had someone with me, I'd have put my elbow in them and said, do you know what? Wake me up when the fight breaks out. Because the fight never broke out. I'd have slept through it otherwise if I hadn't had two Red Bulls and two coffees. And I'm not critiquing the efforts that the Saudi Arabians have gone to, and Turki Al Sheikh and his team and the Ring magazine by flying all the way to Riyadh from New York. But thank God Terence Crawford was there and you could face Crawford and Canelo off afterwards. But Crawford would have been watching that thinking, yeah, I'm going to be able to circle and pop shot him and get in and out and throw combinations. Um, and I give Crawford a much bigger chance of beating Canelo on Friday in Las Vegas in September, Friday the 12th at Allegiant Stadium, all announced by Turki Al Sheikh. If they've got that right, that it is the Friday, um, I give him a good opportunity to win on points, even though I still see Canelo as the favourite.
Looking at Canelo versus Crawford, I think the comparison that I've been making to it is obviously looking at Conor Benn jumping up. I know this is world class fighters, two of the very best in the sport. So in terms of skill wise, comparing it to Conor Benn and Chris Eubank, it's a bit different. But size wise, I think it's fairly similar. But with
I
Terence,
don't agree with you. I think Terence has become much bigger and filled
that's what
out.
I was about to say. Terence has had a lot more time to bulk up now to get
Yeah.
super middle, whereas Conor Benn didn't really bulk up at all. So looking at the size as well and the performance that we've seen, but if we compare both of the last two performances, if you were to split it, let's say like 50-50 being even, what would you split it as?
What, Canelo and Crawford?
Canelo and Crawford, yes.
I think it's a 60-40 fight in Canelo's favour. If he fights the right fight, then he should win. But I got a feeling it's going to be very close, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them do two if it's very close. Because it's if it delivers and it's very, very intriguing. Say like the first Canelo Golovkin fight that I had Golovkin winning minimum 7-5, if not 8-4, and it goes very closely, and it's a controversial split decision to one or the other. I could see them doing it again, and it will be the end of their careers, or certainly the end of Crawford's career, because I think Canelo is looking to have one fight in the UK, be that against a Hamza Sheeraz if he comes through Edgar Berlanga, or a Chris Eubank if he comes through against Ben in the second fight. But if they make Chris Eubank make 160 again, he may well lose second time around to Conor Benn. Look how quickly those two haven't. Ben has recovered really quickly. He had barely a mark on him. The aging process is extraordinary for people. He looks really well a week on from the fight. See Chris Eubank still a little battered with a cut above his eye and all those things. So yeah, 60-40 to Canelo.
Before we just come back on to Ben Eubank and just sticking with Canelo Crawford, what does Crawford need to do? Because he's not got that experience of being at fighting weight that heavy. While he's going to be sparring as an even heavier man, it's all very different when you get in the ring on the night. It's going to be a packed out crowd in Vegas.
There aren't height and reach advantages for Canelo, particularly.
Mm.
Crawford's 5'9", so he's the same height as Canelo. When I saw him physically in December in Dubai at the International Boxing Association IBA event, he looked like he'd filled out. He looked like he was like 12 and a half stone then. He looked like 175. He's not going to have to cut a lot of weight. His movement's extraordinary. He's going to be in and out. He's going to have to be very clever. I think what he might also have over Canelo is hand speed. And Canelo looks to want to load up a lot. He was against Skull. I know he does that when fighters are on the move. But he's got to be smart, in and out, land combos and move. I think he'll have faster hand speed than Canelo, as I say, and his timing is going to have to be perfect. If so, he wins on points, in my view.
Is that so? If Canelo's timing's on point, he wins on points.
No, if
Crawford.
Terence Crawford's time is not, I think he might well win on points. I think Crawford might well win on points.
So on the other hand to that, then what do you feel Canelo needs to do? If you mention
I
Crawford,
see Canelo as the favourite, but it
yeah,
wouldn't surprise me to see Crawford win on points. And I'm going with Canelo because he's the naturally bigger man
mm.
who's fought at higher weight divisions, obviously up at 175 as well. And he's been in, I think, against certainly latterly very, very tough opposition and is very sharp.
Do you feel the activity favours Canelo as well? Because Terence Crawford's been fairly inactive. We're looking at like one fight a year, really.
For
Whereas,
5 years, yeah.
yeah, whereas Canelo does tend to have that same pattern that he goes through every year. He fights in May, fights in September. How big of a difference could the inactivity make for Crawford?
I think big. I think big. As I say, I think Canelo is the favourite, but I think Crawford is the better boxer, the more skilled boxer, the better at working an opponent out. Um, and I think Canelo has fallen in love with landing big shots. But again, when you saw Eddie Reynoso, his trainer, at work um, with Jaime Munguia on Saturday night against Bruno Saras, you really saw the trainer working the game plan and reminding him what to do all the way to the 12th round. He stuck with it because Saras was very dangerous whenever he landed. And I love seeing the work of Eddie Reynoso, and I think they will have to pull out a slightly different type of game plan for Terence Crawford. They're going to have to be more active, throw combinations, and force him to fight them a little bit more.
Looking at Sunday night now, we saw Naoya Inoue in action. In what I'd say, what did deliver. I was very impressed with what I saw. I was very entertained with what I saw on Sunday night. Just looking at the Inoue fight itself, we've seen him go down again, but I think the thing we're learning with Inoue is that he really does have it in him just to keep going on and grind an opponent out, doesn't he?
When the monster gets knocked down, the monster awakens. We saw that with a terrific hook from Ramon Cardenas in the second round. And Naoya Inoue, willingness to engage as well. Look what we saw with Ben Eubank. Willingness to engage for 12 rounds. Willingness to engage here for 8 rounds of action. 8,500 people in the T-Mobile Arena. An absolute treat to have Naoya Inoue. I didn't need anyone to nudge me and keep me awake on this one. I didn't need a coffee. I knew Naoya Inoue would deliver. 27 knockouts now in 30 fights. He really is amazing. And as he said afterwards, you know I always want to have a brawl to begin with, but him being knocked down by Cardenas woke him up and he took over the fight. I thought he was... You can argue it was slightly premature, the stoppage, but there was no remonstration, no complaining from Cardenas, who said, I just want to be in these big fights. The Monsters special, I want to say that he may not step up to featherweight, you know. It may be a step too far, and we may have seen that on Saturday night against a world-class opponent with heavy hands. at super bantam that we may not see him step to feather. You know, I think that's a possibility.
Do you feel when we look at the prospects of Inoue going up to featherweight, when you go up there and you see someone like Espinoza who fought just before him at 6'1" at featherweight, and you look at the size difference, it does look like a task that just does seem a little bit too tricky to tackle.
Yeah, Ray Vargas is 6 foot as well. I remember first time I met Ray Vargas, and I was thinking, "Are you Ray Vargas?" And he's like, and feels like 6 foot 1. He's very tall, long, and lean. But Nick Ball handled him and should have been given the title. I think it was WBC that
It's
night.
yeah,
He should have
WBC.
been given the title that night. It was a draw, of course. Um, I don't think getting on the inside is difficult for Inui. I just think there's a risk that just stepping up that one more weight division, people might be able to control him physically a little more. I mean, if he could step up another weight division and stop opponents, I think it makes him one of the greatest of all time, if he's not already one of the greatest of all time. Um, I mean, I still love to see he and Nick Ball because I think the stylistic matchup it will only deliver, and I still think I've always made Inui the favourite in that fight, even though Nick Ball's got the opportunity to beat a legend and etch himself into the annals of boxing history, and I would wish that for him. But I just saw signs on Saturday night that physically it might be a real task at feather. Do you disagree or not?
I think if he takes the Crawford approach to it of moving up and actually gives himself the time to bulk up, not just because we know Inouye's going to be fighting Akhmadaliev now in
Yeah.
September, but then after that, I know Turkey's mentioned fighting again in December. If you want to move up in weight, I think that September to December turnaround's far too quick to get your body
Yeah, I
prepared for
agree. I
that
agree.
move up.
I agree. I do agree with that, yeah. It's time to put the weight on, time to condition yourself and nutritionally into that higher, heavier weight division. Completely agree.
Just looking at the fight with Akhmadaliev now, it's a fight that Eddie Hearn's been talking about for a long time. He's really been pushing to get it made, and now that it's made, how do you see that fight going? Do you feel Inoue remains a favourite and remains a strong favourite?
I don't think he gets beaten as super feather, super bantam. I don't think he gets beaten. I
Mm.
really don't. Powerful as Daliev is, fast as he is, I just think Inui, he just finds the sweet spot. But I would love to see the contest.
Do you feel with Inoue, if he is to beat Akhmadaliev and do it convincingly, there's not really anything else to do at Super Bantamweight. At that point, he might need to take that sit back and then prepare for featherweight.
Yeah, he probably will because, for him, it's all about creating legacy. His ambition knows no bounds. I'm just trying to suggest that um, the older he gets, 32 now, the more he fights, the vulnerabilities early in the fight. Who was the other guy that put him down early? Was it
Lewis
Lewis
Neary.
Neary? Yeah, Lewis Neary put him down early, and again, it just woke him up, and he dominated after that. That I don't know. I just have reservations. That's all.
Fair enough. Just looking away now from the weekend's action. Go back to last week, the day after Ben Eubank, we saw the official announcement of Usyk versus Dubois 2. A lot of talking points going into this one, and I suppose the low blow has been remained the big headline of all the talk. Do you feel Daniel Dubois can take anything from that first fight going into the second fight?
Oh, definitely. I thought he even felt it at the time that he was having a very good fight against Usyk. He was giving Usyk issues, and he's got to do the same in the second fight. Wembley is now a happy hunting ground for him, Wembley Stadium. A lot of British fans will be behind him. I think they'll be split 50-50 because I think Oleksandr Usyk is loved in this country. That's my experience when I speak to casual or dyed-in-the-wool, purist boxing fans, that they have so much time for Oleksandr Usyk. And obviously, 7 times he's fought Brits already. I think two, one, two, yeah, Joshua twice, Fury twice, Chisora, Bellew, Dubois 7 times, or is it more? Um, I think it's seven.
I think
I think it's
all I can
seven
think about
fights.
those seven.
In maybe his last 10 have been against Brits, so he's very popular here. No, there's a lot Daniel Dubois can take from that first fight, but he's got to put the pressure all on Oleksandr Usyk. I think he's dangerous for the first 5 rounds, very dangerous. But I think after 5, 6 rounds, I think Usyk will take over, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him stopping Daniel Dubois again.
Does Daniel need to start the fight in a similar sense to how he started against Anthony Joshua, where
No, absolutely,
by the time the
absolutely.
fight got started, he looked like he was already in round two and gear two and ready to go through the.
Absolutely, that's exactly what he's got to do. Usyk was 38 in January. Don't give him any respite. Don't give him any space. Don't let him find a rhythm. Don't let him use those dancing feet. Go in there, put it on him, hit him hard with a jab, and make him fight you. That's what Don Charles will be saying to him. I think Don Charles, his trainer, has even admitted he doesn't think that. I heard him on Talk Sport recently saying, I believe in a stoppage for Daniel, not him beating Usyk on points.
Don Charles has also said in an interview with us that Alexander Usyk's been acting strange in the build-up to this one so far, with the calling out George Fox's son for a street fight, a four-on-four street fight after the fight. Do you see Usyk and do you understand why he could be thinking that Usyk's?
No, they've been trying to wind him up. They were trying to wind him up. They did a good job of winding him up last week when he was in the UK. They had lots of face-offs together. They had lots of the Piers Morgan show in at Talksport. They'll have filmed the gloves are off. They'll have filmed these sit downs. He'll have been made to be around Daniel Dubois a lot. I thought the push wasn't very convincing. Could have been a bit more dynamic and dramatic, but overall, I think Fox was trying to get into his head. Don Charles' son, yeah, trying to get into his head. Don Charles had his mantra of he was a cheat. I think it was a low blow anyway, a borderline low blow. And I think Usyk milked it at the time, but I do think that Luis Pabon was right to call it a low blow. I believed it was at the time, instinctively, even though a lot of people disagree with that. Yeah, I think they're doing all the right things, and the fact they perhaps did get under the skin of Usyk a little will help them in their cause.
Do you feel Daniel Dubois has caught Alexander Usyk at the perfect time going into this one?
If he wins on July the 19th, that's exactly what we'll have been saying. He caught him at the perfect time. He had his dress rehearsal in August 2023, and he got his full opportunity 2 years later at Wembley Stadium at home to become the undisputed champion on British soil.
And just last couple of talking points here now. Anthony Joshua has been back in the headlines recently, out in Riyadh doing a few interviews. Did one with us here at Seconds Out, which led to him saying that when asked about the rivals in the heavyweight division, he said he's ready whenever they're ready. Do you feel the Tyson Fury fight is starting to have a few legs to stand on against? For a while this year, it's looked like it was never going to happen. Are we starting to see the first few building blocks get placed to make this blockbuster fight?
Um, yes, until I heard from him at the weekend in Riyadh that he's still got to have his elbow surgery. So I just think it's scuppered it. And it's very disappointing to hear that because there was smoke. There were smoke signals in the last week. And when he said about the elbow injury or the elbow surgery it's required, I heard that 2 months ago that he needed elbow surgery from Eddie Hearn, if you recall.
Mm.
And I'm amazed he hasn't had it already.
So do you not? Do you feel we
No,
still see the
no, I
fight?
think it's scuppered. As far as if he needs elbow surgery, he's going to be out for 3 or 4 months.
So you don't see it happening towards the back end of the year, maybe not.
I'd love it to happen to back end of the year, but I don't think it's going to happen now.
So just because of that elbow surgery, because of I know he said it's 6 to 8 weeks out the gym, and then he's got to go through that whole rehab process as well. So realistically, it could be longer than 3 to 4 months.
I mean, the very earliest with that surgery, if it happens now, is an October fight because he's going to have to go through a camp.
Mm.
So it is possible. I mean, I do think with what's been happening around the place, with the big fights, with Turkey Al Sheikh investment, with Ben and Eubank, with Usyk and Dubois announced, with Fabio Wardley and Justice Hooney down at Portman Road, I think there's a juice beginning to get circulated in the bodies of the two men that they want to have a fight. So, listen, hopefully we will get it this year because it's still a massive, massive fight, if not arguably the biggest fight in boxing commercially.
When Anthony Joshua does come back, if it's not Tyson Fury, who else would you like it to be?
Deontay Wilder.
Are they the only two names on the hit list you feel now at this stage of AJ's career?
Well, there's the Dubois rematch, but really, should Joshua fight Dubois for the undisputed title coming off a loss to him? No, I don't think so.
Not at all. Just looking at this weekend as well, it's only right we get a quick word in on it. Lee Wood is back versus Anthony Cacace. A year and a half layoff for Lee Wood, whereas Anthony Cacace in that time has found the form of his career with two world-class victories last year. How do you see this fight going on Saturday, and who do you think comes out on top?
Cacace looked very good against both Joe Cordina and Josh Warrington. Lee Wood, before his 18-month hiatus, had obviously the fight of the year with Michael Conlan, the Warrington victory, the win and the loss and then the win to Mauricio Lara, in which he looked brilliant. He and Ben Davison are a great combination. They're both 36. For me, Cacace is the favourite in this fight. Lee's been out 18 months and he's stepping up a division, but he's got the home crowd. It's almost like an extra man on the pitch for him in the football analogy. I've got a Cacace winning a brilliant 12 rounds on points by a couple of rounds.
Fair enough. Well, Gareth, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. It's always good to talk, and yeah, I look forward to the next one. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Josh.